Satisfy us in the morning with your love. Satisfy us in the morning with your love, that we may sing for joy and be glad in all our days. Satisfy us in the morning with your love. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. May your deeds be always known to the ones you call your own. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. May the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands. Yes, the work of our hands. Lord, for us you have been a refuge from age to age. Lord, for us you have been a refuge from age to age. Before the mountains were formed and the earth and the world brought forth, you are the everlasting Lord. May the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands. May the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to New Life's online service. Thank you for joining this morning. We began these services in the latter part of March, and now it is June, and it looks like we're going to have to carry them on for some time yet. In the book of John, Jesus has an extended conversation with his disciples beginning about chapter 13 onwards, and he says some wonderful truths, but also some hard truths. During that time, all those chapters, they share the Last Supper together. He speaks of being the way, the truth, and the life. He speaks of the world hating those who follow him. And he speaks of him leaving his disciples. He speaks about sorrow turned to joy, and so much more. Then in John 16, verse 33, he says something very appropriate for the time that we are living in now. He says, I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Have a great morning.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when found in a desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
They were walking in circles. The couple had just moved from an apartment in New York City to a cabin in British Columbia. And they absolutely loved their new home and were in awe of the cedar forests that were now their backyard. And so they had to explore. And they were given some insights from their new neighbors about some of the trails and the various places where some of these trails led. And they were also given a warning about how very easily people can get turned around in the forest and lose their bearing. But unfazed, they ventured into this added bonus of their new life in their new home, and they began to trek down these various trails. Each breath brought new levels of excitement, and every turn seemed to unlock these new layers of beauty until, haven't we seen that before? Unsure, they leaned a stick up against a tree, and they continued on, quite sure that they were never going to see that stick again. Until, after moving on, believing they were never going to see that stick again, there it was. The same stick leaning on that same tree. And after a few more attempts, they kept returning to that same tree, looking at that same stick leaning against it. They were walking in circles. And in a moment of panic, they felt like characters in a horror movie, that are trying to break free and get freedom, but who inevitably end up back where they started, but with little less hope each time. They could not escape where they had already been because they're walking in circles. We'd be terrified to find ourselves in that position, wouldn't we? And so we better find out whether or not we are. Because there's some of us this morning, some of us today, maybe even more than we would have expected, who are walking in circles. You can't escape where you've already been because there's something in your past that you're not dealing with. You think you're just going to walk away into this life ahead of you. You can even picture in your mind just how great it's going to be, but there's this thing in your past. There's this stick leaning up against a tree, and it just keeps showing up. It just keeps showing up. You can't run from your past. You're walking in circles. And so how do we stop from spinning? How do we free ourselves from the past? How do we free ourselves from these things in our past, these negative things that just keep showing up? Well, we're going to answer that question over the next couple of weeks. A couple of weeks because, that's way too big of an issue for us to deal with in just one message very, very quickly, as you know. But as you also know, if that's you this morning, if you're the one walking in circles, that thing keeps coming back, you're now desperate to how to get out of it. And so today, And next week, we're going to look at the life of Jacob, just a little bit of his story in the Old Testament. Because Jacob, he's going to help us learn how to walk forward positively. Jacob will help us learn how to stop walking in these circles and free ourselves from the past.
Arise, strength of God, go before, lift me up, eyes awake, eyes of God, look upon, be my side.
how do we free ourselves from these things in the past? Well, our text this morning is going to be Genesis chapter 32, verse 1 to 8. That's going to be where we're going to focus in here this morning. And in this text, we're going to see some things that we got to stop doing. I mean, we have to stop doing them, and yet they seem to make sense to us. And so we often resort to these things, but they ultimately don't help. But before we get to that, let me just tell you very quickly what it is that Jacob's issue is. Okay, Jacob has this negative issue from his past. Now, I'm just going to recap it real quick. If you want the full story, then you should read Genesis chapter 27, verse 1, down to about Genesis chapter 28, verse 5. That's the full story. But here it is in a nutshell. Jacob has deceived his older brother Esau out of his birthright. Birthright, that is the place of number one son, because he's the oldest. Okay, Jacob has deceived his older brother out of that, and not just the birthright, but the blessing that often comes to the number one son, the oldest son. And culturally, those are huge. You know, birthright, the father's blessing, they're absolutely huge. And we get a sense of that when we look at Esau's response to this. Okay, Esau's response is he wants to kill Jacob. And so Jacob leaves home. And when we pick up in the story, in Genesis chapter 32, Jacob's been gone for 20 years. For 20 years, he's had this unresolved issue in his past. I mean, he's just walking circles. And it just keeps coming back. And so in Genesis chapter 32, at least in my Bible, there's a heading for this chapter. And the heading says, Jacob prepares to meet Esau. Okay, finally after 20 years, Jacob is going to deal with this past. But like I said, some of the things we see Jacob doing in the first 8 verses are things that we often resort to because we think they make sense, but we got to stop doing them because they actually don't help. Let's look at verse 1 and 2 from Genesis chapter 32. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." So he named that place Mahanaim. We will not free ourselves from our past by simply sounding spiritual. We will not free ourselves from the past by simply sounding spiritual. Now, Jacob says the right things. Is it wrong what Jacob said? Absolutely not. This is the truth. Jacob says the right things. He acknowledges the ever-present reality of God. And how can he not? None of us have probably never gone toe to toe, face to face with an angel that God had sent to meet us on our path. Okay, none of us can say that's ever happened, but it happened with Jacob. And so Jacob acknowledges this. He says the right things. Okay, this is the camp of God. Obviously, Jacob is not blind to the existence of God. Jacob is not blind to the existence of God. He grew up and he lived with this reality of who God is. Okay? He knew who God was, and not only who he was, but what God desired to do in his life. But to actually step into these things and to see them through requires so much more than simply sounding spiritual. There is so much more necessary to see these things true that God wants to do, to actually step into them than just sounding spiritual. We are very good at sounding spiritual. Okay, that is not our problem. Okay, we are very good at sounding spiritual, and we like our slogans. And we like our quotes. I mean, we might have them in our walls in our house or on our computer. If we want a fix, then we're just going to go to social media and we're going to be filled with all these inspirational quotes, that are supposed to inspire us and fill our faith. We love those kinds of things. We love these inspirational quotes. Quotes like this: "When life gets too hard to stand, kneel." Okay, that should inspire us. That's an inspirational quote. Or how about this one? "Faith tells me that no matter what lies ahead, God is there." Okay, that's an inspiring quote. We like these kinds of quotes. Or maybe this one, this famous one: "You may be the only Bible that someone ever reads." Okay, we like these quotes. We are inspired them as they do relay truth, which is necessary. And yet simply acknowledging these things aren't going to do anything for us until we actually live like they are true, until we actually live these things, and until we actually kneel in prayer when life gets tough. Until we actually step out in faith, because we know that no matter what's coming, okay, yes, God is going to be there no matter how challenging it is. And for us to actually, live the kind of life where we know someone is watching us and it's up to us and our life to point them to Christ. It's not just enough to sound spiritual. And we're very good at it. That is not our problem. I mean, we are very, very good at sounding spiritual. That is not our problem. But the problem is thinking that just sounding spiritual is going to get anything done. The problem is thinking that just simply sounding spiritual is going to free us from our past. It will not. It's not enough. And now you might think that I'm being a little bit hard on Jacob. I'm not trying to read between the lines or color outside of them. Because listen to what happens next. "Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, 'This is the camp of God.' So he named that place Mahanaim." Okay, but now listen to what happens. "Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his older brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, 'This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now.'" Okay, 20 years. "I have cattle and donkeys, sheep, goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my Lord that I may find favor in your eyes." As much as what Jacob said in verse 1 and 2 was true. Okay, this is the camp of God. Okay, this is in God's hands. All of a sudden, in verse 3 to 5, we see Jacob trying to take matters into his own. You will not free yourself from your past by simply sounding spiritual. Okay, inspirational quotes aren't going to be enough. Okay, you will not free yourself from your past by simply sounding spiritual or through self-reliance, through taking matters into your own hands. That's what Jacob does. See, Jacob decides he's going to take matters into his own hands like he always has done, and he's going to send his brother a gift. We actually see the gift that Jacob's going to send down in verse 13 to 15. So if you just jump down to chapter 32, verse 13, it says, Jacob spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau. It's a huge gift. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. Esau is going to send a gift. You know, he's really just kind of planning for the worst. And you might think, okay, what's wrong with that? Okay, come on. I mean, how many of us have done this? I mean, how many of us have done this? We've sent a gift, you know, to soften the edge of a pretty heated situation. I mean, come on, we do this kind of thing. It sounds like it makes a little bit of sense. Well, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with this. Okay? There's nothing wrong with sending a gift. I mean, who doesn't like a gift? But in another sense, a gift is not going to appease the depth of the situation. It isn't going to touch deeply enough. In fact, a gift can merely be a distraction from the real heart of the matter. And when we take matters into our own hands and self-rely to kind of deal with these past issues, okay, this is often what we do. We just look for a quick fix. Okay, if we can just do something with our own hands, okay, we can kind of like blow this over, make it feel like it's not that big of a deal. We can just kind of push things aside, get it done, and we can move on. We try to do these kind of quick fixes to make it just blow over. Like Esau has done. Sorry, like Jacob has done for Esau. But when we read into the story and we actually see when Jacob meets Esau, we learn very quickly from Esau that he could care less about the gift. I mean, the gift doesn't matter to him at all. I mean, he eventually takes it just because Jacob pressures him, but he doesn't care about the gift. The gift doesn't do anything. It's not the issue. And yet for Jacob, taking matters into his own hands by sending a gift mattered very much to him. And yet you will not free yourself from your past by simply self-relying. You will not free yourself from your past by simply sounding spiritual. I'm just going to say the right thing. Or through self-reliance. I'm going to fix this myself. And you will not free yourself from your past when we're swayed by fear. When we're swayed by fear. Verse 6. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he was coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. You will not free yourself from your past when we're swayed by fear. Jacob certainly understands the circumstance that lies ahead. He clearly understands this. I mean, in his mind, He's going to face an angry brother whose anger has been boiling for 20 years, and now it's going to spew over and blow up with this revenge. And so with this in his mind, fear clearly sets in. And we can see fear clearly setting in because all of a sudden, Jacob is dividing things in this moment. Okay, divisiveness, division comes into the situation at this moment. And Jacob has to decide in his own mind what and who he's willing to lose. This does not convey peace. This does not convey peace in Jacob's heart. Jacob's walking in circles. See, 20 years ago, this whole thing started with division. And now we're right back there. He's walking in circles. And we follow. We do the same thing when we do the same things to deal with our past issues. Maybe the issue that you have with your brother that's unresolved. Or maybe the issue you have with your sister that's still unresolved. Or maybe for you it's some other family tension. Maybe it's just the guilt of something that you did and you're carrying that with you now. Perhaps for you it's the abandonment you felt from someone who said they loved you and you thought were supposed to love you. Maybe it's just the words that still sting to this day. The list goes on and on and on of things that we haven't resolved, but we do things that in our minds, okay, we think they make sense. Okay, if we could just do these things, okay, this should work. If I just say the right things, if I just plan for the worst scenario, if I just understand the circumstances, okay, in our minds we resort to these things because they seem to make sense. We seem to think they're going to work. But simply sounding spiritual never works. Self-reliance, taking things into your own hands, it never works. And being swayed by fear, it never works. These things never work. And so here we are, we find ourselves just walking in circles again. We can't escape where we have already been. Just like that couple, wandering in the woods, seeing over and over again that stick leaning against that same tree. Okay, they're walking in circles and they are so frustrated. They're so frustrated. And in fact, that couple, in a moment of frustration, took the stick and they kicked it down and they threw it away because they knew whatever they were doing, it wasn't working. Okay, what they were trying to do wasn't working, and so in desperation they knew things have to change. Okay, we can't keep stepping forward this way. We just keep finding ourselves back here. Something has to change, and they are desperate for it. And so today, that's maybe where you are. You can't escape where you've been. It just keeps showing up. And now you're desperate. Please, I can't keep walking in circles. But do you know that it's been scientifically proven that when we're lost, we walk in circles? When we're lost and and try to find our way, we just keep walking in circles. That's what we do. That's what we're wired to do. That's just what happens. Unless there's a light source that we can look at to keep our path straight. No, if the sun's out and we look at the sun, we're good. If the moon's out, we're good. Okay, we need something to look up to that is going to give us direction that the ground cannot give us. And Jacob knows who to look up to. Jacob knows that source. He knows who to look up to. In fact, just before he made this journey, he was reminded of this. And today we need to be reminded as well. In Genesis chapter 31, verse 3, it says, "Then the Lord said to Jacob, 'Go back. Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives.'" Yes, including Esau. "And I will be with you." Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. Jacob just needed to be reminded to look up and to let God lead the way. And maybe for us today, that's just a reminder that we need. Okay, the reminder is to look up and let God lead, because God is telling us the same thing today. I mean, if this is you today and you have this unresolved past issue, and here you are walking in circles and you can't escape where you've already been, if this is you, then God's really telling you the same thing. This morning he's looking at you and he's saying, go back. Doesn't matter how long it's been, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, he's saying, go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives. Okay, whatever this issue is, whatever it is that's still unresolved, whatever that stick is on the tree that keeps showing up, go back. And I will be with you. Today, we just need to be reminded to let God lead the way. These other things that we might think work, don't work. These things that we often resort to, they do not work. And you will not free yourself from your past until you let God lead you. God, today we know that this is a big issue. And this is an issue with a lot of people. We're walking in circles because of this unresolved issue in our past. And we're trying to walk away, and yet here we are walking circles. It just keeps showing up again and again and again. And in our humanness, that's what we do. We are actually wired to walk in circles when we're lost. And in those circles, we are doing these things that we think help, but they don't help. They do nothing for us. God, we know that these past issues can bring guilt and shame and deep hurt. And we can find ourselves in this place where we're just desperate to get out of it. Desperate to finally walk away. And so, God, we need to let you lead us in that. Whatever it is, Okay, sounding spiritual is not enough. Relying on self, not enough. Being swayed by fear, that's not going to help. We need to let you lead. So help us today to look up and to step out in faith and to let you do that. Because we've got to stop walking in circles. We really do need to be freed from our negative pasts. To walk and cover the ground that you have for us. And so, God, I pray that we would find the faith to do that today. And trust you in it to lead us through. And we pray in your name. Amen.
You are who you say you are. You'll do what you say you'll do. You'll be who you've always been to us, Jesus. Our hope is in you alone. Our strength in your mighty name. Our peace in the darkest day remains, Jesus.
This we know, we will see the enemy run. This we know, we will see the victory come. We hold on to every promise you've ever made. Jesus, you are unfailing.
Our guide through the wilderness, our joy in the heaviness. You are our way when there seems there is no way, Jesus.
This we know, we will see the enemy run. This we know, we will see the victory come. We hold on to every promise you've ever made. Jesus, you are unfailing. We trust you, we trust you. Your ways are higher than our own. We trust you, we trust you. Your ways are higher than our own. We trust you, we trust you. Your ways are higher than our own. We trust you, Jesus, we trust you. Your ways are higher than our own. 'Cause this we know, we will see the enemy run. This we know, we will see the victory come. We hold on to every promise you've ever made. Jesus, you are unfailing. This
You will not free yourself from your past if you don't let God lead. And I pray today that we've been challenged with this. Not just challenged, but encouraged. To stop walking in circles and to deal with these things, these negative things in our past. Because God will walk you through it. He'll lead you through it. He promises He's going to be with us. And so look up and let Him lead. I pray that you've been challenged and encouraged with this today. You know, we don't need to be tied to our negative past because God has a future for us that He wants us to walk into, a future of covering ground that He has for us. And we need to take it. But as long as we're stuck in the past, we can't. So let God lead you through that. And I pray that you be able to do that. If you need help with that, or if you need to talk to someone about that, then we are here, we are available. Please call, please text, and we'd be more than happy to pray with you and talk you through that. But this week, let's go. And let's walk in faith, let's look up, and let's continue to let God lead us.